Video. I've probably been waiting a year and a half to make. I just didn't want to make it way ahead of time. I got other stuff going on. So here it is. So this is about, first off, it's about America's Pluto return. So I'm making this video on Sunday, 14th of July, 2024. 2 days from now, on the 16th, America's Pluto, transiting Pluto, will be conjunct America's natal Pluto. So Pluto takes about 246, 47, 48 years. In this case, 248 years. Because Pluto, because America, when it was born on July 4th, 1776, Pluto is in retrograde. So basically, for that 248 years, Pluto had to go around and then retrograde. So it passed the birth degree for the United States of America, and then it had to go back. So 248 years ago, July 4th, 1776, we got that going on. So this means a death for America or a death and rebirth for America, depending on where you live and, what way people decide to take that, what they decide to do with it. This is why historians going back into the ancient world, they very astutely observed that empires, governments, dynasties, corporations, they only last for about 250 years, and they fall, they're destroyed, or they reform. They have some sort of a rebirth. So this is what America is going to go through. Nobody can stop it. No Messiah figure who promises salvation can deliver on that, because you just can't. This is the way things go. The other thing going on, we have at 2 degrees sidereal Taurus in America's 6th house of enemies, conflicts, health, death, poisons, disease. But, conflicts and enemies we want to focus on more here. We have a conjunction of Mars and Uranus, 2 degrees sidereal Taurus, conjunct with the fixed star Algol. So Algol, it's not a star in Taurus. It's in the constellation of Perseus. So Perseus is at a higher latitude in the sky than Taurus, but it's the same longitudinal degree. So basically the star Algol, it's like lined up with it's like the very beginning of Taurus, it's near like the nose of the bull. So Algol is the head of Medusa. It's the demon star. If you've seen the movie Clash of the Titans, or if you've read the story of Perseus, Perseus, to defeat a destructive being, whether it's the Kraken or it's the king who kidnapped his mother in the original story, he had to get a hold of the head of Medusa to stop this being, this destructive being. So he cut Medusa's head off and then held it up to his enemy and turned his enemy to stone. So, and the other interesting thing is when America was born, July 4th, 1776, Uranus was at 2 degrees Taurus in the 6th house, so conjunct Algol. So you're getting Mars-Uranus conjunct on top of America's natal Uranus. So Uranus has an 84-year orbit. So it takes 84 years to make a return. So 84 years ago, we had World War II brewing. 80 years before that, it was a civil war brewing. 80 years before that, what is that? Puts you into, about 1780, the revolution was wrapping up. Big events for America every time Uranus comes back to its return point, to the natal point. So Uranus is the earth shaker. Uranus is a disruptor. And Mars is a conqueror. Mars is a planet of aggression, violence, volatility, all that stuff. Put Mars and Uranus together, it's a big boom. So, and it's interesting. Algol deals with like, it's looking into the face of Medusa. Now, looking into the eyes of Medusa in these myths, in these films, it turned destructive, mindless beings to stone. So people talk about, when you get major planets conjunct Algol, people lose their heads. They're in these situations where they have to look in the mirror. It's like why vampires don't want to look in the mirror. You have to look in the mirror and deal with who you really are. So this is going to happen. People are going to be doing this. People are going to be melting down. People are going to lose their heads, figuratively. Now, it's interesting. Yesterday, Donald Trump almost, well, by appearances of things anyway, it's possible that, that whole assassination attempt was some sort of like a Hollywood effects, publicity stunt. But if there were real bullets fired at him, he almost lost his head. So, interesting time for this to be happening. So, what all this adds up to, mom and dad's world is going away. And this is what 2020 was about. America and its allies in the Western world, the NATO countries, especially the original NATO countries, Western Europe, Australia, Canada, Britain. We had a big 75-year drug and alcohol and vanity party after World War II. From 1945 through 1920. Now we are in the hangover period since 2020. And it's just going to keep ramping up and getting crazier for a few years. So, yes, for us in the Western world, mom and dad's world is dead. We're going to have other things to worry about other than fitting in and looking pretty. So, if you're not ready for this, buckle up. So this Pluto return, Pluto was in Capricorn when America was born. Pluto is back there. Pluto is back to, it's like 6 degrees, 49 minutes, sidereal Capricorn. So, and this Capricorn is America's second house. Second house deals with resources, finance, things like that. So, Capricorn, the government for America, is in the second house of finance and resources. So banking is our government. Second house and Taurus both deal with business leaders. So to me, presidents, prime ministers, they're just CEOs. They don't actually run anything. They don't control anything. They're hype men. CEOs get hired to hype the value of a company's stock. That's all they do. They don't run day-to-day operations. So there's going to be a change in this whole culture of these CEOs that run countries and how we the people deal with them, what the relationship is with them. So, very obviously through the reigns of Donald Trump and Joe Biden, and even George Bush and Barack Obama, these people are getting, the pedestal that we've put them on is slowly getting shortened. And, over the next 15 years, they're going to keep coming down the ground level with the rest of us. And we're going to slowly realize, oh my God, we've been kissing these people's asses and, treating them like religious messiahs who we need to look to for our salvation. And even if your religious messiah is some spiritual being, it's sad if you're looking to someone else for your salvation. Only you can save yourself. Getting people to just give up their power and their responsibility and look to a messiah, that's a way of controlling people. And governments and religious institutions love that. They love it that people are begging for messiahs to save them. So we're getting a rude awakening in that department. And then, so Taurus, where Mars and Uranus are conjuncting, lined up with Algol, the demon star, the head of Medusa, Taurus, the finances, the wealth, the resources, it's America's sixth house. And so this says to us that America's biggest enemy is actually its financial institutions. And this is what the founding fathers said. The founding fathers didn't want to have huge professional standing militaries. And they said standing armies, standing navies, they're dangerous, but banks are even more dangerous. So the bank is our biggest enemy. So the bank is going to go through basically a demolition. And that is going to bring our political system through a demolition. So, and this is what we need. We need a disruption, you know. And like, who the fuck would want to have this job, to be a politician, to be a president? Well, an egomaniac, right? Now, Donald Trump is certainly that. Joe Biden is certainly that. They're cokehead, alcoholic egomaniacs who are greedy. And, you know, they often have like sex addictions. And, you know, these politicians are fucked up people. The one good thing about Donald Trump, he is the disruption that the world needs right now to disrupt the establishment. So, yeah, he's like Loki at Ragnarok, who's like, you know, in the Norse myths, the gods get totally self-righteous, totally vain, totally full of themselves. They don't want to deal with the inconvenient, unpleasant sides of life, you know, and that's what like Fenrir, you know, the Fenris wolf represents. He represented the anger, the destructiveness, the aggression in the unconscious minds of humanity and of the gods, especially the Aesir, the Aesir. And the Aesir, the celestial gods, didn't want to deal with that. So they had him tied up and had him confined. Well, he eventually breaks out. And then Loki leads the whole downfall of the gods. And this was not an evil thing. It was time for the gods to have their downfall because they were self-righteous, destructive fuckers in their own right. You know, it's like when the gods get too full of themselves and self-righteous and they become control freaks, they block evolution. So then the trickster steps in. Loki steps in, shakes things up, and burns the current order to the ground. So it's like a lot of people think Donald Trump is some Christian patriotic messiah who's going to like save America and like bring things back the way they were in the good old days of WW2 and Ronnie Reagan and all this shit. He's actually burning the whole house down. You know, not completely, but he's like burning down the way we deal with it and how we kiss the asses of the military, the government, the establishment. So, you know, it's time for a disruption. So these are two big events right on top of each other. And I first became cognizant of this, probably a year and a half ago. I was doing some remote viewing. So when I remote view, I like to deal with spiritual beings, with archetypal beings. So I like to deal with the gods, the goddesses, you know, higher dimensional beings. I find Odin or Wotan, whatever you call him, Woden, to be great for this because Odin is awareness, intellectual and spiritual awareness personified. So I was like, okay, anything I should know about, you know, in the heavens? And I pictured the 12 creatures of the zodiac in the sky, and he basically like sucked me through his left eye, and I was out at night in this field and I could see the zodiac. Then I saw the bull of Taurus, and I saw like a slowly moving kind of red-brown, you know, planet or star or body, and I was like, I just knew, oh, it's Uranus. And I saw a faster moving red one come up behind it, and I knew it was Mars, and I saw them conjunct, you know, near the beginning of Taurus, you know, the first degrees of Taurus when you get out of Aries, you know, near like the snout of the bull, the head of the bull. So I was like, oh, I was like, I wonder if Mars and Uranus are going to conjunct in Taurus in the future. So I looked ahead when I came out of my meditation, out of my remote view, and it's like, yeah, sure as shit. July 2024, Mars and Uranus, we're going to meet in Taurus on top of friggin' Algol, like one of the most volatile, powerful stars in the sky. You know, people make it like Algol's evil and all this shit, but it's not. It's just it makes people face the facts. Is really what Algol does. When people can't face the facts, they get paralyzed and they lose their fucking minds. So yeah, that's basically the deal with Algol, but it was pretty amazing. So I saw this in my meditations. You know, and people can say, well, isn't remote viewing just your imagination? And I'm like, yeah, definitely. And they're like, you really talk to Odin? And I'm like, well, in my imagination anyway, but you know what? This whole universe, this whole reality is just in your fucking imagination anyway. In the afterlife, whether you send yourself to hell or heaven, it's all in your fucking imagination. So it's like, yeah, it's in my imagination. That doesn't make it any less real. So that's how I became cognizant of this, and I've been looking forward to this. And you know, I thought about making videos ahead of time, but I was like, nah, I don't like hyping shit. So yeah, so what we're going to see from these two big alignments, these two big conjunctions, back to back, basically on the same day, because Mars and Uranus and Taurus conjunct with Algol, they'll still be conjunct. They'll still be on 2 degrees Taurus even the next day when America makes the perfect exact Pluto return. So what are we going to see here? Well, it's not going to be like 20 years ago where we're going to see America invading countries and countries falling and, you know, all the super pro-military dipshits like celebrating it. We're not going to see that. America's too broke. It doesn't have leadership. The people are fat and crippled and, you know, not in any condition to do that. The only ones who really want to go to war, it's like a lot of baby boomers watching TV, they're too old and broken down to go to war. So that's not happening. I think the wars will be more within. And I don't see the Civil War thing happening like it did 150, 60 years ago. I think it's more like the breakup of the Roman Empire when Rome broke into East and West. Those two empires didn't fight each other. They just sort of did their own thing. And they had, you know, mutual defense agreements, but they started doing their own thing. And because they had two very different cultures. You know, the Western Roman Empire was Latin, the Eastern Roman Empire was Greek. So I think it's more something like that. But what we have millions of people crossing the border all the time. And the same people who most likely activated this shooter in Pennsylvania to take a shot at Donald Trump's grape, they have sleepers coming in. Chinese sleepers and sleepers from the Middle East and fucking MS-13 and Mexican mafia. So if they don't manage to bump off Donald Trump, then they're going to, the establishment, through its intermediaries like Central Intelligence and Organized Crime and the other federal agencies that run clandestine operations and activities, they're going to create acts of terrorism. You know, they'll disrupt supply chains, blow up power stations, cripple bridges, airports, hijack planes. You know, they'll have these people doing this kind of shit. You know, sleeper agents. So yeah, it's interesting too. This you know, you look at Donald Trump's chart. You have, so let's see. He's a Leo ascendant. you get Taurus in his 10th house. So the 10th house is your career. So Mars and Algol are meeting up here. This is going to give his career some pop. This is just great publicity for him. And it's like, I don't see how he can lose this election if the results are, reported honestly, which no one would ever think of doctoring those results. It's just a conspiracy theory. So, but yeah, this will slingshot his career, and then in October before the election, if it's not canceled, he's got an eclipse, a K2 eclipse, a K2 solar eclipse in his second house of Virgo, which is your speech, your mouth. So it's like he's going to be, in his role as a trickster disruptor, he's going to be saying things that he's not even going to be aware of. He's going to be like channeling his own soul basically and just like dropping truth bombs. And a lot of people are going to hate it and a lot of people are going to like it, and it's just going to divide people, and that's how it is. So yeah, so that's the whole point. The financial order is being shaken up, and we don't, the financial order, some people want it to be a digital currency, digital ID, fucking police state, technocracy, hell on earth. Other people want more financial freedom. I think we're going to get both. It's going to be about where you live and where in the United States you live, where in the world you live. And everywhere is going to balkanize. So balkanize means a big monolithic country breaks down into smaller pieces of smaller communities, and they kind of do their own thing. Balkanization, it's like when Yugoslavia broke up and you got Serbia and Macedonia and Bosnia, Herzegovina, and Croatia and Montenegro, and what's the other one? There's a few others. But anyway, yeah, I think that's what we're looking at, is just sort of breakups of big countries and, different regions getting autonomy. So, but yeah, our relationship with the media will never be the same, where it's like the headlines come out, pretty much everyone gets on board, does what the media says, and then you just have a fringe element that everyone makes fun of because they can see through it. It's like, when Pearl Harbor happened, yeah, there were people who saw through it and they got marginalized and they got, treated like pieces of shit. But they could see through it, unlike most of the population. Because at the time, pretty much the whole population said the cinema, the radio, and the newspapers don't lie. So we're being faced with that again. It's like, yeah, media does lie. And are you going to double down on it, or are you going to help build a new world, a new America? So yeah, that is basically the gist of that. The financial order is coming down, and the financial order is the political order. So they're coming down. And yeah. So pretty interesting. But yeah, I don't see these people able to get Mr. Trump. But it's also possible too that this is like a movie set. All the world is a stage, right? The interesting thing about big budget movies, well, any movies in general, sometimes to elicit authentic, genuine responses out of actors, directors will unexpectedly put actors into very highly uncomfortable, awkward, or even dangerous situations. So it's like, it's like I said in a previous video, it's like Trumpy's corporate sponsors, his handlers could have like either set up like, movie set, bullet hits, you under that fucking under the fucking carpet mop of hair he has, that giant comb over, whatever the fuck that is. They could have put a blood pack, under the hair on his temple. They could have had the guy on the roof of the factory with blanks. When that thing starts going off, they explode the blood pack. That's fucking possible. So he could have been in on it with the special effects. Or it's like, I don't, that's fucking tough to be able to hire somebody who's good enough to graze someone's head. I don't think there's many people in the world who could do that, 150 meters, it's like 450 to 500 feet. It's right in between that. With a small bullet that like an AR-15 fires, they're not incredibly accurate. I don't think Trumpy's handlers just hired someone to graze his temple. That's far-fetched. But if you had movie special effects, the bullet hit and the tiny little blasting cap to pop it, to make it look like in the movies, like when someone gets shot and the blood splatters. If that's possible, but yeah. So yeah, but yeah, they may have put him in a weird situation to get an illicit response. But I think it's probably some kind of MK job, run by some clandestine agency. So yeah, I'm gonna stop running my mouth here. So yeah, that's the Pluto return and the Mars-Uranus conjunction on Algol. Talk to you later. Have a good one.